Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, season 15, Chatz8. Each week we watch and discuss 2 episodes of the Netflix original series, Sense8. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by yet another important member of the Sense8 production crew. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your hands to the guy who adjusted everyone's socks and underwear in between takes of the orgy scene. It's Magellan.
Okay, no, sorry, just stay there for 1 second. The right side of the boxers were
Lou.
Yeah, right, because he put his teeth on him, pulled him down a little bit. Let me just Okay.
That's
Sorry.
continuity.
I just gotta look at the dailies real quick. Okay, yeah, actually your dick was leaning slightly this way. Perfect. Looks good.
Wolfgang, we need you back in half chub immediately, please. Hurry the fuck up. Get back down there. Get down.
Okay, you're still nude. Good. Great.
Good.
Stay that way.
Still nude? Just stay nude. How many days on set? How many hours on set did the actor who plays
This
Wolfgang
guy
have to be
fully
nude?
nude. Oh my god. He's like, out of the number of minutes he's in both of these episodes, probably 60% nude, right?
Yes.
80% nude?
This is like the section of Sense8 that I remember the most, is just like nude Wolfgang hanging out in India and in Germany and in various hot tubs and weddings, and that actor is comfortable with himself, and he should be. And I'm just happy for him. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Max Remelt, I think is the actor's name. Doing great things. I don't know what like any of the Sense8 people are doing besides being in the Matrix Resurrections at this point.
Remelts is what I do to my grilled cheese when I want to eat the leftovers the next day.
We watched The Leftovers last season, Magellan. Come on now.
Oh, that's funny. That was quick.
Oh. Yeah, it kind of opened. Oh, it opened itself up to me quickly. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling fine. This show's great. It feels good to watch it and talk about it.
I love shorts. They're easy and comfy to wear. Comfy and easy to wear. Wait. They're comfy and easy to wear. I love Sense8. It's easy and comfy to discuss.
Yeah.
Fuck. Anyways, yes, I agree. It's like a nice show. Like I was thinking, we've been talking. Magellan and I have been off mic for the past like 45 minutes, just shooting the shit as we do.
Yeah.
Me and the girls. And now I'm just like, I'm still in that mode, so I have to get back into professional podcaster mode and actually talk about a television show. One of the silliest, most interesting, weird, fun television shows I've seen in a while. It's Sense8, y'all. For what it's worth, I'm doing just fine. That's all. No complaints. I have complaints, but I'm not going to complain. That's what therapy is for. I have therapy on Saturday. I'll complain then. How about that? Is that satisfactory for you, Magellan?
Yeah. I'll complain on Saturday. Well, I have therapy on Sunday this week, so.
Oh, how do our weeks always sync up? That's so funny. Oh, we both
don't
do
you usually have it on Saturday? Well,
I do. Yes, I do have it on Saturday, but we always have it on the same weekend.
I have it every weekend.
Oh, that'll do it. You know what? That'll definitely do it.
Sync up.
Ripped. Anyways, let's talk about Sense8, the best TV show since Sense7.
Yeah, let's do it.
Wait,
that's funny. Hold on, that's funny.
Hold on, stop the podcast. Do we have to laugh at our own bad jokes? That was funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
This week on Chatz8, we watched Sense8 Season 1, Episode 5, Art is Like Religion, and Episode 6 of Season 1, Demons! I was trying to do the Imagine Dragons. I don't know how the Imagine Dragons song goes.
God, how does it? I'm so glad I've forgotten a lot about Imagine Dragons.
It's almost as if you imagined dragons.
Wow, you're good tonight.
No, I'm not. Stop complimenting.
God, it's like the first time we podcast.
And my demons, my demons. I had to listen to 5 seconds.
You just played it out loud.
Oh, whoops! That was not in my head. Okay, good. That's like when the characters in Sense8 see each other. What? Go ahead.
Did Imagine Dragons like create that 2010s sound that I hated so much, or were they just the pinnacle of an existing sound?
I think that everybody is the sum of things that came before them. And so they came at a point when 2010 sound was at its zenith, and they left
just
a mark
captured
on
it the best.
I'm tweeting this right now. Please, everybody who follows me on Twitter, fave it. did we all just collectively imagine dragons? Art is Like Religion was written by Lily Lana Wachowski as well as J. Michael Straczynski. It was directed by James McTeague, who also directed V for Vendetta, fun fact. And it aired, as did every episode of Sense8 Season 1, on June 5th, 2015 on Netflix. John, what happened in Art is Like Religion?
I just want to say, first of all, I had this thought at the end of the second episode that Sense8 is a show that like only could have existed in 2015 when it's like, oh, streaming is like the next movies. We're going to pay $1 bajillion to movie people to make them like a big movie. Yeah, go to 8 different countries. Wow. Like that's the only year that could produce this show. Mm-hmm. But my God, if this show was coming out week to week on a streaming platform in 2022, it would be the talk of the freaking town.
It absolutely would. I think that people weren't necessarily ready for certain aspects of it now because, like, there are shows that come out every once in a while nowadays that young people will be like, okay, it's got gay people in it. Good, I'm done. I'll watch 1 million episodes and develop a deep, obsessive fandom. And this is better than that. And so I'm you guys, we had it. And like, you know, folks at home, I've watched the rest of season 1. I know that the quality doesn't exactly stay at 11 forever, but it's still, even at its most mediocre, Sense8 is more interesting and creative and weird and silly than like so many shows coming out today and could not be made today with this budget and this level of scale.
Right. Because just even having just watched House of the Dragon, you know, like that show is so sexually explicit and upsetting, and everybody's talking about it around the water cooler. You know what I mean? Like that's not a deterrent to it being the biggest thing. And a Sense8 wouldn't have that like Game of Thrones gas to it, but you know, I just think like it's sexy, it's inclusive, it's like sci-fi, it's got all this stuff going for it that if it's
emotional, it's thoughtful, the acting is good, like it's just hitting the beats, and I hope it continues to hit the beats. Asterisk.
Anyway, you asked me what happened in this episode. I'm sorry for that tangent.
No, I want you to do tangents. Go ahead.
In this episode, the Sense8 struggle with intensifying connections, which results in some interesting days on set for Leto and a wedding day surprise for Kala. Alan, what'd you think of Art is Like Religion?
Oh, I adored this episode. I was cheering, I was hooting and hollering. This episode really leans into my favorite dramatic technique of Sense8, which is the Sense8s meeting each other and actually talking to each other instead of being like, whoa, a white man, that's crazy. It's like, hey, who are you? Why are you the way you are? And why are you in my head? I don't actually like we've crested over, oh no, am I hallucinating? And now we're into like, what can we do with this? And it feels like a really good progression of like the storylines that we've been following for the past couple episodes. I really liked Art is Like Religion, and it's got some fun action and just some like funny moments. So I had a great time. What about you?
Yeah, I felt similarly. I think I really liked both of these episodes because both of them had more
Leto. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but also both of them had more of the Sense8s like taking a more active role in visiting each other and hoping to visit each other and making sense of visiting each other. And like you're saying, you can only get so much juice out of the mystery and the characters wondering about what's happening before it's like, okay, but it's episode 5. Like, can we talk? Can we do something here?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're kind of cruising into the second act of the story. It feels like we did all our act 1 stuff, and now balls are rolling, tension is building, people are crossing over each other, and even in the midst of that, you know, I think it's cool to see the Sense8s develop different interpretations of what's happening to them, or like care to different extents or worry to different extents about what's happening to them. Because you have some characters like Sun, for example, who's like, who the fuck are you? Like, what is this?
Yeah, why is this happening?
You have Will, who's like, well, I got the lore dump, so I know what's going on here. You have characters like Riley who are like, hey, what's up? Welcome to my brain. That's cool. You have Capheus trying to like summon the Van Damme spirit of the Korean woman and like seeing her as a benevolent, some kind of entity or something. And then, I think it matters that it maintains, at least for now, for Nomi, this question of like, is this a neurological thing? Because that felt to me purposeful as like part of the trans experience for Nomi's character, to then also see that in the second episode, to see new thinking emerge to kind of shift our understanding of that, and like that being the plot where like the thematic purpose of the Sense8 stuff became more deep. So I really like that move narratively, and I like the range of ways that characters are experiencing the Sense8-ness, and how that is informed by their positionality.
Yeah, so like on a previous podcast, we mentioned how, it was a bummer that Capheus and Sun were not in an entire episode. And we had a friend of the podcast, Ryan Slawinski, who was like, in ensemble shows, we don't like get confused or like we're not unhappy every single time somebody isn't there, because that's like, ensembles aren't about everybody being there all the time. Like Star Trek or Babylon 5 or any of these like shows about a crew of people. Not everybody has to do something every episode, which is true, and I 100% agree with that. I think where that point came from, though, with Sense8 is like, number one, this is a show about the connection of 8 people. It's not the connection of 6 people. But number two, this episode shows that like you can create a lot of interesting and rich connections between any pairing of these people that are unique and special and funny and warm and thought-provoking, and they don't all have to be Sun gives people martial arts powers or Will gives people gun powers. It's like, well, actually, there are problems that some of these characters deal with that only other people can talk with them to talk through, and that is showcased really, really well in this one. And I think emotionally, the characters are sharing with each other in ways that are, again, really funny and also really touching. I think... did you have any thoughts on that, by the way, before I get into it?
Yeah, I think what I was noticing by the second episode, especially, is the ways that we're starting to explore how, and in this first one, we definitely see a lot more of like how one Sense8 is feeling influencing how another Sense8 is feeling. So like the fact that Sun is on her period is creating this like comedic plot where Leto feels like he's on his period, basically. And that's one way that this happens, in some ways that are funny, some ways that are more serious, but like I'm feeling emotions rushing towards me from the connection to these other people that's influencing how I'm feeling. But there's also this other part of it that's like, because I'm already feeling a certain way, I am brought to particular other people, which I think is intriguing to me. And that's kind of like what's happening with Kala, for example, and Wolfgang. It's like she's feeling a certain way, so her connection specifically to him strengthens at times where she's feeling more receptive to that connection, right? Mm-hmm. Or anyway, so there are a bunch of different examples of that, but I just think it's really, there's a lot of nuance that we start to explore with like how visits happen, as well as how sensations and emotions are shared or not shared, that I think is just really cool to watch. And the thing that I come out of both of these episodes appreciating, that I think I said a couple episodes ago, is this is just such a like finely tuned, intricate show. It feels like a symphony, really. Like all these different instruments have been strategically placed at different parts of the composition. And like you hear a trumpet and you're like, that's the trumpet section playing trumpet stuff, but you also kind of unfocus your ears at times and you just
let
hear
the whole thing wash over you.
Right, and just hear the song and the whole piece. And that's something that I don't think I've ever seen an ensemble show accomplish that sort of thing, because often ensemble shows are like constrained by reality. They're constrained by the fact that, like, well, this character can't just talk to this other character right now because they're not in the same place. They're miles and miles away from each other. Or they don't know where the other person is or whatever. And so, you know, most ensemble shows are just kind of like, well, we'll visit this plot and then we'll go to this plot and then we'll go to that plot. And it's beautiful the way that this show just sort of jumps you over here, and then suddenly you're here and you didn't even realize you were going here, but now you're over with this other character. And it's really a marvelous thing to watch.
It is absolutely. And it's what works for me the most is, like, we watched that pilot, and one of our biggest complaints, and I think most people who maybe started the show would say, this is so broad. They're painting you with such broad brushes and making every character so, like, cartoonish almost. And what's really now finally starting to click with the show is when they interact with each other, we learn things about the characters that we would never have learned about in their own plot lines. I mean, perfect example, we have Leto becoming comfortable being an emotional actor who's, like, performing both as an actor and as, like, pretending to be straight for people. And, like, his, like, quote unquote receiving of Sun's period pain, like, brings out an emotional worry that was already in him, but is just kind of highlighted and underscored because of that. Take as well, for example, like, we would have never have known that Capheus is somebody with, like, a wide-eyed optimism and excitement about travel and seeing the world until he goes to Riley and goes like, oh my god, British tea. Like, that's really interesting. I did not know that about Capheus, and his plotline would have never taken us there. Or that, like, Kala is, like, sexually naive despite being an adult, because she's never been, like, in a long-term relationship. So, like, seeing Wolfgang, we learned that, like, she has desires and certain things that she's into or not into. So, like, that's the magic of Sense8, right? Is you can, like, learn about these characters and do even, like, traditional ensemble show character development in a story about connection and how we see and feel each other all at once.
Yeah. And I think just the last thing I'll say before we get into specifics of certain plots and how those unfold is, like, Sense8 should be taught in film classes as a show that perfectly exemplifies, like, the importance of kind of fundamental principles of visual storytelling and what happens when you break those principles. Things that are even as small as, like, when that amazing sequence when Capheus and Sun are walking together in their city centers in Nairobi and in Seoul. And there's, like, little tiny things, like, you see a shot that shows that Sun is going to sit down from where she was to where she's sitting. But you don't see footage of Capheus going from there to there. You just see him sitting there when she gets there, which, like, in another context, it's like, oh, you fucked up. Like, there's no continuity in the shots here. How do we know that Capheus walked from here to here and sat down? But in this show, the point of that is to communicate, like, he's there, but he's not really there. And there are just so many ways that this show does little, like, kind of intricate filmmaking choices like that to communicate the nature of the connections that they're having, to communicate how the characters are feeling about them, if they're surprised by them. We talk a lot about the way the show uses match cuts, and it continues to do that. But just little things like, oh, you know, when are we choosing to intercut between sequences, and what does that tell us about how the sequences are interrelated? Or when are we choosing to show a character walking from point A to point B versus not? And how do we use movement to motivate a cut where now suddenly they're in London instead of in Nairobi? I just think that stuff is, like, really, really cool to watch if you're watching it with the eye of like, how do you put together a set of images that make this story coherent for the audience. So I continue to be really impressed by that, by the Wachowskis and by, in this case, James McTeague.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the mapping, like the screenwriting, the storyboarding specifically is the word I'm looking for of this episode and of this show must be so difficult. Even like you think about Kala's eating a dessert that was made by her father, and then we cut to Nomi and she's like, my coffee tastes like a dessert. And then anyways, now Nomi's plot is about something entirely different. Like just, it feels like when you listen, like you said, to a good song or like a symphony and it just flows so beautifully and you're like, I don't see the thread. I don't see to reference Leto's plotline, I don't see the wires here. Which is why it's so funny when they like do in-universe acting and performing, because the show has so far managed to really successfully hide the like thematic wire connecting everything together, which is like just impressive. But like let's talk about Leto first, because he's got some of the funniest stuff in this episode. So he's feeling bloated after Sun is feeling bloated because she's not having her period. It's a tough night after everybody did karaoke last week, and him and her see each other in the mirror and have a kind of freak out moment of like, oh my god, who are you? And we learned something fun, which is that like we talked about how people are all speaking English, but to each other they're technically speaking their native languages. So Sun is speaking Korean and Leto is speaking Spanish all the time in this plot line. But when they listen to each other, when they hear each other, they both hear English. And they also can separately speak English. It's weird, right? Because they like can clearly understand each other's native languages and they speak in-universe English to each other.
Yeah. Well, I think the lines are a little blurry because one of the early visits that we see is Riley and Capheus, and they explicitly say that they're speaking English to each other. Like, yeah. Riley is speaking English because she's in London. Capheus is speaking Swahili, and then he notices Riley speaking English, and he also speaks English. So he starts actively speaking English. But I think everybody else is not speaking English. It's just for our benefit as the audience. We're understanding that they're communicating to each other and they understand each other. But it is interesting when the show chooses to have them speak in their native languages to communicate like, hey, this is what's happening in their heads. Anyway, we're not going to do this the whole time because it's confusing to you as an English-speaking viewer. Right. But like that whole sequence in the bathroom with Kala and Wolfgang, I thought that was great. And that's an example of nobody speaking English there, but they're eventually understanding each other.
Mm-hmm. And, we could dig into every single one of these, but it's mostly just a lot of cool combinations. Like you said, we have got Riley and Capheus. We've got Leto and Sun, which we don't expect. We have Capheus and Sun, which is probably the best like emotional one of the episode.
Yeah.
And then the one for me that I thought was underrated was Will and Nomi, because Will and Riley especially are like having in-universe interactions with other people on the show. Because real life Will Gorski calls real life Nomi's mom and asks like as a cop to talk to her about like what's going on with the procedure, and she proceeds to dead name her child and make this awful point about like the hormones must have messed up her brain or something, which is scientific BS. And he's the one who corrects her and says like your daughter's name is Nomi, and we love a white cop who says trans rights. I can't stand Will yet. I still find him annoying. I find Diego fascinating. We'll talk about Diego in the second episode, but I don't know. I was happy to see Nomi get a small win here, and her scenes with Neitz are also deeply, deeply earnest and nice in this episode.
Yeah.
They have a conversation. I'm just jumping around here, man. I'm not here to have a linear conversation. This is Chatz8, baby.
Yeah, the show is anything but linear. I'm wondering, just for before we leave that moment with Will Gorski, like that was really interesting to me. That's the character that we choose to be the one to stick up for Nomi.
Yeah.
And that feels like a statement about the potential of empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, in either direction, either like, hey, this presumably cis white male, I was going to say heterosexual, but we actually, hold on.
Unless
This is the second episode. That he, recognizes this and stands up, but also maybe there's some empathy in the other direction of like, you assume that this guy was going to be a dickhead, but actually maybe he was fine. And I don't know. That's just intriguing to me that that's the character we choose to be the first of the Sense8s to like make a point of that, but I don't know what else to make of that, except I am interpreting Will Gorski to be like the American Joe white guy stand-in character. And it's intriguing to me to have that character do that.
Right. This is the cop. He's Joey Pants' son, and he gets yelled at for not being a good cop. And yet he's the one who also stands up for Nomi. And it's true. Like, I know trans people who are friends, who have friends who are police officers. Like, it's not that it's a not all cops plot line, but it's just that, like, it doesn't have to be this bad. There can be nice people. He can still be a weapon of state violence and a nice person. Both of those things can exist simultaneously.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good moment, and it leads into, I think, one of the sweetest moments of the series so far, which is like Nomi and Amanita's plot, which, on paper it's like so saccharine, but I like how saccharine it is because Nomi is somebody who has not had this kind of sweetness and niceness in her life.
Yeah.
And so she describes to Neitz the feeling of being seen and not seen all at once, and how Amanita was one of the first people to ever make her feel actually seen properly as herself and not just like a face in the crowd or something. And they say something that, like, we don't talk. Queer discourse has gone so far past this idea nowadays, but like how quickly things have changed and discourse has changed. And like, these are two queer women in San Francisco, California, who didn't grow up with these thoughts, who were raised with these thoughts like within the past 2 decades of their lives. And so Amanita is like, she says the line, impossibility is a kiss away from reality, because like, you wake up one day and it just starts to make sense to you. Maybe I love women. Maybe maybe gender doesn't matter to me as much. And then you are just somebody like these two girls who seem very out there and strange and ridiculous, but they are now having this earnest human conversation about, like, I don't know, I'm still a person. I'm still a human just like everybody else. It's just that I made certain decisions in my life and I feel different now. Like, my life is permanently changed for the better.
Yeah.
They make them, and fucking Nomi says Amanita made her believe in love again. And I was like, fuck, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating theme or thing to think about like how a queer perspective is like so essential to this show. Hearing you talk about like how these are characters who like know a deep fundamental core truth about themselves and their lives that they very recently or within their conscious memory like understood the scope of, or understood what it means to them or how to live that thing, or are still figuring it out. And like that fundamentally is what's happening to the characters in this show. They are having their very like life essence, their existence, their sense of selfhood completely fundamentally changed or called into question. And they're having to like figure out, well, this is actually who I am and maybe who I always was. And what do I make of that? So that's really interesting to think about.
it's something I think about a lot, obviously, of just like, can you go back? Can you ever return to the innocence of life where you didn't think about or understand these things? Because even like I know people who have detransitioned who still think about things like this. Like your brain and the way it gets rewired is permanent. Like it's flexible, it's malleable, it can change, but it doesn't go back. It doesn't revert to a point where you didn't understand the spectrum of love and gender and sex. It's just like a thing that you add on to your brain and is beautiful, and like you can continue to live the whole rest of your life with that. Which is why it's like so important, for example, that like queer people be allowed to live long lives, and why people make such a big deal about how sad it is that we often have shorter lifespans. Is like, you just figured it out. These are like, and I'm sorry to like dig too deep into this, but like you just figured it out. Let them live a whole life with this, and how beautiful that can be.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that's my little I love Nomi and Amanita corner for this episode. At least they're just so good and sweet.
I agree.
Going back to Leto for a sec, he's dealing with the troubles of being a masculine action hero while going through a brain period. And this director, who's just very goofy, is like trying to get more emotion out of him, more action out of him. And the scene where the hot lady comes down the stairs and Leto starts crying because life is short and it's futile and beauty is futile. And the guy's like, can you just want to fuck her for 2 seconds, bud? Can you just
chill?
Easy. We're making a movie.
What's all this death and decay talk? Come on. It's funny.
There's almost an aspect to it too of like, Doug, we're making movies so that we don't have to think about death and decay. That you're literally in the industry where we avoid thinking about that. Like, let's not. And he just keeps asking the director, like, does my character know he's going to be betrayed? Shouldn't he know by now? What's his emotional state? And the guy's like, you want to fuck and you would want to kill people, and that's all your character does. Stop overthinking this.
Right.
I love it. And I've heard like interviews with, action movie actors who are like, you do think about stuff like this, even if it doesn't make it onto the screen, you feel it. Yeah. And this all concludes in a really stunning action scene where they use the squibs because they don't have time to practice without squibs. And speaking of art is like religion, the villain of this film that Leto is filming is he an art? I believe he actually is an art thief or something.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just some like movie villain guy who has lots of art or opinions on art or something.
And so there's this shootout like in an art gallery, and the director is like, the point is that there's going to be blood everywhere and it's impossible to clean, so we're going to do this in one take. Please get it right, Leto. And this is synced up with the comedy, man, the jokes. I love the writers of the show for this. Leto is being a badass action hero while Will Gorski thinks he's a badass action hero, and he is not. He is playing a first-person shooter when you've never held a controller before in your life. Just like eating shit, falling over boxes, missing turns, getting he just gets clowned on relentlessly. Him and Diego are trying to chase down the kid from I think it's the kid from the first episode, or like some other kid. Because there's like some reason to believe that he's involved in gang violence. So they're chasing him through his neighborhood, and his family sees him, and he runs away, and they fucking suck at it.
Yeah, that was the kid they saved. Is that what it is?
I was not clear on this.
I was really not clear. His partner said something about like that picture that you took the other day or something. I do not remember what that was referring to. This stuff is... The Chicago stuff is bad. It's not good. I think I will say intercutting it with this like cheesy action movie scene felt like it was poking fun at the badness of the Chicago stuff.
Exactly.
And like the way that, like you're saying, Will Gorski thinks he's an action hero type of thing, or like the way that he and his partner view their role and how like movie-fied that is. So that felt like a meaningful commentary. But then for the music to cut and for us to do this thing where like the guys they run into are like, hey, do I smell bacon? You're in the wrong neighborhood. It's like, what are we doing here? Can we not?
It's super corny. It feels like baby's first anti-police violence plot. I mean, this is like that's the 2015ness of it. Is like when the show is not pro cop. I can say that with most confidence.
For sure.
Which is nice in an era of so much propaganda to finally have a show that's like pretty firmly anti-cop, but it's in such a hammy way that it feels like immature almost. You know,
and I think it's also still adopting some storytelling tropes of like 90s propaganda type movies.
Yeah.
Like this whole sequence feels like I'm watching a cop movie from 1995 or something like that. So I don't know. It's just, it misses the mark a little bit, but I do think it's more self-aware than maybe I was giving it credit for when we were seeing some of the cop stuff from previous episodes.
Right. And what it loops back into is what's his face, the director for Leto, being like, you know, I have the biggest heart on that's never going to go away, which reminds us also that like, and they talk about this a lot in the second episode, but like heterosexuality is a circle. It loops around back into being gay. Like, and this is like a trope, you know, in a lot of media is like, oh, a lot of Hollywood types and a lot of like toxic straight men are actually like closeted gay men, which is like a pretty harmful stereotype, but also is like kind of what they're teasing in a joking way there of like, I've got a big boner because you're so sexy in your action movie. It's like, yeah, well, this is all, you're also talking to a gay man who is like a closeted gay man. Like the comedy is not lost on me there.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Leto's doing his film.
The specific line is, I've got a hard on that's going to last all week. There's something about the specificity of that I found kind of charming.
Also Leto crying in the car going home after the bad day and then like hallucinating in the car.
That sequence was so good. Yeah, that was great.
My roommate was asking this. Does someone hit his car?
I couldn't tell whether someone hit his car or he hit someone's car.
They just go right past it.
Yeah, he got in some minor fender bender type of thing.
Okay, he's rich. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal or anybody got hurt.
But yeah, like that stuff made the Will plot kind of funny to me, but otherwise it's still not my favorite.
No.
I wanted to briefly just mention the Wolfgang stuff this episode. It's not as good as the stuff in the second one, but something robbery. He has an uncle. Right.
They're trying to do some like, my son was going to crack that safe, but you cracked it. Like, what the hell?
Your dad failed to crack it and it ruined his career. Are you going to ruin your career? Never forget who you are.
Crack you open and kill you.
Oh.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
I think I would like, you know, I like my share of movies like this that are kind of like handheld, like small ensemble crime drama. Like this movie of Wolfgang and his best bud. They're German safe cracking guys and they get in over their heads. And that's the movie. Like, I'd spend 90 minutes or whatever watching that and being like, whoa, have you ever seen German wolf crack? So I don't know why that's what it's called. Have you ever seen Wolf Crack? Yeah, it's this like 1996 like crime thriller. It's actually really good. But in this show, it's like, nah, I'm okay. I don't need it.
I don't need it. And it's happening really slowly too, which makes like those movies work. Like Heat, for example, works really well because it's pretty fast paced despite being long. And it's about like people in opposition to each other. Whereas this is like, it's like getting in the way of Wolfgang just getting with Kala and hanging out with Felix. Like the plot is
which
like
is
an
way more interesting to me than him talking to this guy.
That's like, not to spoil anything, but like that's like what the show does that starts to annoy me is when the main plot gets in the way of the characters just being characters. And it's like, I guess we have to take care of the bearded guy. I guess we have to do XYZ.
Right.
Like that's like where the show starts to lose me a little. But
yeah.
Anyways, there's not too much with Wolfgang though. Do you have any other big stuff? Him and Felix have fun at a bar and listen to music, and then he goes to the bathroom and speaks to Kala in the bathroom.
Yeah. Felix is doomed to death I mean, this guy's gonna get killed at some point.
Entirely. Right? Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I wish him the best, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The song playing in the background here is called "Crocodile Tamed" by Zoe Wise, which, if you look it up, is
liked it.
It was good. It says "as heard on Sense8" if you look it up, which is maybe it was an original song. Anything could happen. Yeah, that's mainly his stuff. Nomi's got some fun allies in her corner. It's like fun to see her and all the other queer folk like helping each other. Power of community, power of solidarity, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to just shout those people out because I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Capheus, also a highlight of this episode. Him and Sun speaking to each other, as we said earlier, just really good. He's a fun tourist. They debate their identity, who they want to be, and how they are both sacrificing themselves for other people. This is, again, what I'm talking about of like, if you put any of these characters together, they find their connection, and it's really beautiful and specific. These are both people who are like trapped by family in a way, for better and for worse.
Definitely.
He tells her briefly about a story about his mom. They were threatened by some like scary men at their house one day, and she had a knife, and she was positive she could kill one of these men, and none of them wanted to threaten her and do anything because they didn't want to be the one who got hurt. So Capheus continues to idolize people who can defend the weak and the incapable. So I think Capheus is just going to become Van Damme at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, why not, right? Doesn't somebody call him Van Sham in this episode? That was pretty fun. Oh, because
he tries to do like a roundhouse kick and he falls flat on his face.
Sad. Hilarious.
Yeah.
They take the bag back from him, then he takes the bag, and then he brings it to Silas, and it had coconuts in it. Silas was like, I was testing you. You almost died because I was testing you. Ha ha. Silas sucks.
Oh, yeah.
I like him. I like how much he sucks, but he sucks.
I think they do a lot of work to make him clearly terrifying, but not like evil, which is interesting.
Tough balance, right?
Yeah. Because there's some other, antagonistic characters in the other plots who are like, this is a bad guy. But Silas, it's like, I don't want to get mixed up with this guy, but like, I don't dislike him, I think.
Yeah. I think it's in the second episode. Yeah, once they establish what they're going to be doing with him.
Yeah.
And Capheus is talking to his friend, and he's like, I'm working for Silas. And you just get the feeling with the friend that Jayla that you're like, oh boy, that's not a guy that we want to get involved with. Nothing bad has happened yet, but it will. It inevitably will.
Right.
We're waiting for the shoe to drop with this plot, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Capheus also just hangs out with Riley for 5 minutes, and that was the one you mentioned earlier. That's really funny. He says, he's like, "Oh, I'm in Nairobi." She's like, "Oh my God, in Africa!" And the way that Samuel Amin smiles, and he goes, "Yeah, in Kenya, in the country of Kenya."
Yeah, she made the same mistake that I did last week of not knowing where Nairobi is. I thought that was pretty good call out post.
Exactly, for you specifically.
Yeah.
But then they flip the script because then he also generalizes.
He's like,
England.
London, the Queen, Harry Potter.
English tea. Like,
yeah.
Very funny. Good. We all have assumptions about other people.
Yeah.
That's the main stuff for my boy Capheus. He gets his bag back. He's talking to Silas. He's got a job for him. We'll find out what that is.
Yeah.
And then just some stuff about Kala. She's getting her henna tattoo as part of the Mendi ritual for her marriage. We learned that she's the first woman in her family to marry for love, which is really sad.
Oh, pull on the shirt at the neck there.
How does that feel to be like a day before your wedding and your mom is like, by the way, none of us have ever loved each other before until you. Congrats. Huh? Wait.
And to be like, wait, me? I'm not marrying for love? What?
I don't love him. That's really cringe, actually.
Yeah.
It's fun seeing the rituals though, and this concludes with her extremely over the top wedding sequence again. I guess is there wedding stuff? Oh yeah, the 7-step ceremony happens in this. This is the end of the episode.
Where, I thought that was a great sequence. I really liked it.
It was the intercutting from like step 1 and then like go to Wolfgang. Step 2, go to Wolfgang. Step 3, oh God, what's going on with Wolfgang? And they're cutting to other people too. They're cutting to other characters. But...
Yeah, I mean, there were like kind of two thematic things that blended into each other here, which I thought was really cool. The first is coming out of his conversation with Sun, Capheus says, sometimes you make the choice, sometimes the choice makes you. And then we follow these characters who like have to make a choice. Like, okay, Sun has to make a choice, and she ends up giving her dog to her martial arts teacher guy because she's going to go to prison.
Sad.
And Kala has to make a choice about getting married, but then it's like Wolfgang is naked in a pool, and I'm like, what fucking choice does this guy have to make? Like, he already made a choice. I guess that's what it is. He made a choice, and he's gonna get fucked over by it. Is what it is.
Right. More choice to continue with the safe cracking and stuff.
Yeah, and then we kind of flow from that into the 7 steps thing, and Kala saying what the 7 steps are, and it's all this stuff about like, you know, commitment and tying your life together with somebody else's, and it's this really cool sequence because it's talking about like all these values of matrimony and whatever and human connection, and it's cutting to all the other Sense8s, and so the episode is like simultaneously glorifying these values but also, you know, undercutting like, why are these values housed within this very specific ceremony, this very specific context or like format of relationship, you know? And I thought that was just a really cool way to communicate that theme. And then of course it culminates with naked Wolfgang being there in the aisle like, hey, I object.
I can't tell if I am having Sense8 memory of this show from watching it 6-7 years ago, or if it's predictable. But I like turned to my roommate and I was like, Kala's gonna see his dick right before she makes the 7th step, and then that happens, and I was like, is this show predictable, or am I remembering that? What the fuck?
That felt predictable. I mean, the dude's nude in the pool, like, she's gonna see his dick. I didn't think I was gonna see it, but
you got a whole couple seconds of it.
Yeah.
I made a tweet on the Chatz8 account this week, which I just sent to you so you can look at it. Okay. And it was kind of like poking fun at the way that Sense8 like dramatizes and almost like fetishizes in a way the like Hindu marriage ceremony. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's like critical or that, it's just that it's like so fascinated by it. And you make a good point that at least the 7 steps thing is like, hey, these are all different ways that we commit to each other. But my problem with it, and also why I tweeted that, was it feels like and maybe I'm wrong here, but the creators of the show are almost saying like, isn't it ridiculous that the 7 steps work this way? Why would anybody be like permanently like it's beautiful, but also showing that like she's not going to do this. She's not going to like commit to Rajan because one, maybe like heterosexual marriage is like too constricting, and 2, they don't love each other. That's the truth of it. And it just feels like it's not saying that this is a normal thing that's beautiful and happens to people all the time, which it is. It's more like, she says that. Isn't that strange that they do all the rituals? But like they did the steps, they did the Saptapadi, the Indian wedding ceremony thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the place where I feel conflicted is the show is very happy to like make this look beautiful and make this look like a traditional, I mean, I don't know what's traditional, but to present to the viewer like, this is an Indian wedding ceremony and look at how cool it looks, and we're going to slow-mo different parts of it and like relish the kind of trappings of this cultural thing for the sake of making cinema out of it. And like that stuff, that feels as weird to me as like the way that the show lights and shoots the scene where Capheus is with his mom and she opens the door and like the guys have torches and machetes and stuff, where it's like I am an American white guy, and I have been given images like this to represent these places in the world before. So I don't have the rubric to be able to tell if what you're giving me is like accurate or not, but the fact that it's matching other images that I've gotten from other places makes me feel like it's like an oversimplification or a trope or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff with the Kala plot feels like, are we celebrating this like very specific cultural thing? Or are we like, this looks cool, huh? Take a look at how cool this looks. And
anyway, she's gonna get with the white guy. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. And I think where it succeeds for me is being this like gentle, empathetic critique of monogamy.
Yeah, that's the word I kept looking for.
But it's not a specific commentary on like this particular Indian ceremony. It's just like, this is the particular brand of marriage that we're using to talk about marriage very broadly, or to talk about how we can have a more expansive understanding of like, what does it mean to be connected and committed to other people.
To people, exactly. Because yeah, like the Nomi and Amanita plot is also about being connected to someone and feeling seen and all that stuff. So like, we aren't to judge one or the other. It's just that one of these isn't going to succeed and the other one is.
Right.
You know? The episode does have that scene, and also it's a montage that made me pretty emotional actually here at the end. Because like, some of us are eating dinner alone. Some of us are alone in a pub. Some of us are alone swimming. And some of us are at a wedding. And some of us are, you know, like, it's just like the variety of life. If you like let life happen to you, how varied it can be and how many things are out there for you to see and experience. I just found this like really, I don't know, very affecting. And in the way that like Sense8 is trying to be, which is to say, just showing the full spectrum of ways that people spend their time. And like, we are to assume then that this is all happening simultaneously, right? Because time zones.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was more attentive to like, are we making sure that it's the correct amount of daylight in different places so that it matches up? But I think it's meant to be simultaneous.
Because when Will and Riley have their quote unquote meet cute later in episode 2, in the second episode this week,
they talk about it. Yeah,
they talk about the time zone difference. Yeah. Before we get into stray notes, I wanted to read you the 7 promises that they make as part of this ceremony, just so we can at least say that we did a little bit of the work, 1% of it. So sure. the 7 steps in an Indian wedding ceremony are called the Saptapadi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. The first step, let us provide for our household, stay in good health, and carry out our duties and responsibilities to each other, our families, and our tradition. The second one is, let us develop our mental and spiritual powers. The third is, let us increase our wealth and comfort by righteous and proper means. We love that. 4, let us acquire knowledge, happiness, and harmony by mutual love, respect, and trust. 5, let us be blessed with contented family of strong, virtuous, and heroic children. 6, let us be blessed with long lives. And 7, let us remain true companions, committed only to each other. So yeah, deeply monogamous, but also there's something beautiful about like the understanding that you're marrying into a family and that comes with its own set of responsibilities. Good stuff.
Very cool.
Before we move into the second episode, Magellan, did you have any stray notes you wanted to bring up?
The only I wrote Rajan getting fucking sturdy on the dance floor. That's what I wrote in my notes.
Sturdy.
Sturdy. He's getting sturdy.
He's good. Is this when he rides in on a bike, or is that in the second episode?
Rides in on a bike?
You think rides in on a bicycle or a motorcycle during one of the ceremonies?
I think weird. It's this one. I don't know. He's a cool guy. Maybe.
Maybe not. I have a quick one. Sun, her teacher, having her balance a cup of water while she does a pose is fun. And then when he turns around, yeah, she takes a sippy. I love that. Did you catch the line when Wolfgang speaks some Hindi to Kala in the bathroom? And then the mom, or the aunt rather, is like, oh, you and I should have a conversation. I can explain some things that happen after you get married. She says, Auntie, it's okay. We have the internet. Also, I have a really hot German guy with a big dick who keeps walking around my apartment. So, like, I know what dicks look like. It's fine.
Yeah. The
internet.
Right.
Internet of humans. Speaking of dicks, by the way, last thing I have. So while Lita's prepping for his scene about the destruction of art, Will signs a piece of art, which is this insane birthday card that Diego hands to him with like an elephant penis on it, like a dick that like swings around. Did you see this? It like goes around the guy's body.
No.
Do not rewind back unless you're at home and you're interested. You can rewind back and find it, but it's absurd. It's supposed to be like it's a gag birthday card, but they show it, and I'm like, some graphic designer made this. Oh god, I love it. Do you have anything else, Majel?
Nope, that's it.
Fabulous. In that case, we'll be right back after this brief musical break to discuss demons inside. Demons.
Welcome back to Chatz8. The second episode we watched this week was Season 1, Episode 6 of Sense8, entitled Demons. It was written by Lily and Lana Wachowski and J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Lily and Lana Wachowski. It aired on June 5th, 2015, just like the rest of the first season. Alan, what happened in Demons?
In this episode, while the Sense8s bond, Nomi takes a bold move to gain her freedom, and Sun makes a choice that she may someday regret. We're cooking. It's a serialized drama. More things continue from last episode. Did you like the things that happened in this episode, Magellan?
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for warning me that this one gets a little sexy because just timing-wise, I had to watch this one on my phone on the train. Luckily, I was able to do it picture in picture, and when the sex stuff happened, I made it real small on my screen, the size of a fingernail, and I had to put it even into my pocket because even that wasn't enough for what was happening on the screen.
You really? You put it in your pocket?
Yeah, because I didn't want people on the train to see me watching the scene.
Watching a big gay trans orgy.
It was cool though. Good times, everybody.
I did warn you before we watched the show. This was a big reason we weren't gonna watch the show, and here we are.
When we were first thinking about covering it. That's right. Anyway, it was a pretty good episode. I came out of it like, God, good show. Never seen anything like it. What a show.
Yeah, you know, it hits you with surprises, which I think can often feel like, wow, I love this so much. And then you think about them and you're like, I think that's just different from things I've seen before. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different. Mm-hmm. And I love different. The show is very different in a good way.
Yeah.
It opens with a cute musical montage as Will and Riley have their fucking meet cute. They basically have a Sense8 Skype date. Try saying Sense8 Skype date 3 times fast.
Sense8 Skype date. Sense8 Skype date. Sense8 Skype date. Yeah.
It's not as hard as I thought. This is just very fun because like Will and Riley are like our two least developed characters, but at the very least they get to be developed with each other, and they can mechanically figure out the Sense8 stuff faster than everyone else because they have nothing else to do.
I will say, starting the episode with like Will's at a cop party and there's this like acoustic guitar music and then Riley's there, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take a quick nap. But it ended up being a very sweet scene, so my apologies to Sense8. I'm sorry.
The show always leans earnest and sweet and saccharine, and I'm pretty okay with it. She's always wanted to go to Chicago. He's always wanted to go to London. She says, well, here you are. And they blink and they're in a pub in London. It's cute. Or in her apartment, rather. Then the real fun comes from him giving her his phone number. Why does he hand his phone to Diego? To like prove that it's real, I guess? Yeah,
to prove that if his friend is talking to her, then it's real. Because like even if he's like, hey, I'll call you, if he's hallucinating it, his hallucination could be so elaborate that he thinks it's happening for real. But if he hands the phone to his friend, then like he presumably can't hallucinate that.
Must be happening. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. I really like this show keeps finding creative ways to visualize the Sense8 stuff and to just like play around with it. That moment where they're on the phone together and there's like an echo of them talking, that's so good.
Yeah, they're both talking and hearing the echo. It's like, fuck, that's clever. God
that's so fun.
Yeah.
So it's such a creative show with its premise, and I love that.
And what this episode does, and the show always tries to stick to, is like, compliment sandwich style. They will make sad scenes be bookended by nice scenes. So we go back and forth from nice to sad to nice to sad. And it's like, okay, Will and Riley are friends and they like each other, and maybe there's a little bit of spark there. Nomi has been robbed. And you're like, fuck. Okay, we're back to reality, I guess. Whoop, there goes Rabbit. Nope, he's so bad. Mom's spaghetti and all that.
Stop it.
You don't know how much energy it fills me with after a week of like not feeling enough emotions and wanting attachment and physical love and all that to make you laugh. It fucking brightens up my week, and I thank you for laughing at that joke.
Thank you for making it.
You're welcome. So yeah, they robbed Nomi. Neat says the corniest line ever here. She goes, "Oh my god, shit just got real," and it's like Nomi. I'm sorry, not Nomi. Neat says that, and it's like that's illegal.
Yeah.
But whatever. The show isn't about real people talking to each other. It's not. I'm not against it. It's just like, God, she said shit just got real. Son's confessing to embezzlement and doesn't feel good about it. But meanwhile, in Riley's plot, Uncle Benjen's alive. Just kidding. The guy Adar from Lord of the Rings is alive. Just kidding. What's his name? Tony?
I don't. Nix.
Nix. Good job. Nix is alive. He has a gunshot wound through his cheek, though. But unfortunately, Bambi and her boyfriend are alive, too. And if you were paying attention, and I said this on the podcast, Riley knew that they were going to betray her because she had the paranoia moment when Leto had the paranoia moment.
Yeah.
He was like in a scene where his character was about to be betrayed. And he goes, I feel like I would know it. I feel like I'm going to be betrayed. And then she walks up and hangs out with Bambi. I fucking called it. I'm good at this.
That's
also, I
really
watched this show.
Good foreshadowing.
Yeah, it's super clever. The show rewards you for paying attention to stuff like that. And then we get a very, very intense scene. You took notes on this, right? About Riley and the Nick's like assault scene.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That scene was a lot. Basically what is happening here is Nyx is like, where's my money? Riley doesn't have it anymore because she gave some of it to the busker that she walked by in the tube. Is that what
Good job. Yeah, they do.
Thank you. And she put the rest of it in the bin, the trash bin, the rubbish.
Mm-hmm. The rubbish bin.
And then she took a lorry to her flat.
Oh my God, get this man out of here.
I think a lorry is an elevator. I don't know.
She, to be fair, speaking of British stereotypes, her vape looks like a sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who.
We'll talk about the scene where she introduces Son to Hash, by the way.
Please. Okay.
What a moment. But yeah, this guy is a really scary guy. He's like, where's my money? Where are my drugs? She got rid of them. He doesn't believe her. And so he submits her to torture. He puts a plastic bag over her head to asphyxiate her briefly, to try to get information out of her, bringing her to the brink of passing out. And it's like we see her face smushed against the sides of the bag and the bag inflating and deflating. Like that woman's head is in a bag right now.
Well, the stunt actress did that.
Yeah. It's terrifying. And then all of that is happening and it gets intercut with this scene with Will that is also like really alarming, where he feels what's happening to Riley as well. He starts choking and he starts fighting back physically and helps her to do that. But in the process, he physically hits the people at the party that he's at. And it's this like kind of scary scene of like, whoa, what's happening, man? And him being alienated from the people around him. So it's like, both this just like raw, terrifying, violent scene mixed with this like kind of psychological thriller moment of how do you manage, the Sense8 stuff, and keep the people around you safe, around your physical body safe. And then the Rings of Power orc leader guy,
Nyx.
God, that guy has a scary face. What a
Very
good guy
scary.
to hire to be your villain.
Especially with
He
the
does this
gunshot
whole-
wound.
Yeah, he does this whole villain monologue where he's like, something as simple as a plastic bag, the act of violence makes it the most terrifying thing in the world. And it's like one of those villain things that's like very written, but also it's like, oh, I'm going to have some nightmares about this guy later.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Anything can be a weapon if you wield it right, basically.
Right.
And also, I wrote in my notes, like, is Will not going to deal with the consequences of doing all this? And they, like, hint that he's in trouble, but we just kind of move past it because cops have this kind of immunity about, like...
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder where that's going to go. It basically is just chalked up to... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just if it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's basically just chalked up to his partner being like, people are talking about you, and Will being like, why? What did I do? Why are people talking about it? It's like, okay. So
you badly hurt a couple of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some other big hits. Amanita and Nomi come to stay with Amanita's mother, who we meet, or at least the person that she calls mom. This is fascinating. I love the conversations that they have about the self and do you have the quote, by the way, about like how the self can only change if introduced to external stimuli?
Yeah. So Nietzsche's mom is a science professor, it seems like.
Yeah, I think so.
And she says the engine of evolution is variation. To be more than yourself, you need to incorporate things that are different from yourself.
Such a Wachowski
cool
quote.
Line. Yeah. That's actually, I don't think I put that in quotes, but I actually don't think that's a direct quote. But that's the concept, is like, in order for things to evolve, they need to be different than what came before, or they need to incorporate, various new or different aspects into themselves. Yeah, which is a super Wachowski quote. Fascinating. And what a great way to think about the journey that these characters are on. It's like, to become more than yourself, you have to
embrace something outside of you.
What's outside of you, yeah.
Exactly. And also, because what Nomi's worried about that she verbalizes here is, is what she says, like, is this one of those, like, brain illnesses that's going to hurt for a while and going to make me feel worse and worse until I die? Or is it like Alzheimer's, where I'm going to just fade until I don't recognize myself? And that's the line to which Nietzsche's mom is like, well, if it's something that makes you feel like you're different or you're outside of yourself, then it's not you. Like, it's beyond you. Very philosophical, very smart. And it's awesome that Nietzsche's mom is just like a cool mom. Yeah. Their plot keeps running into the power of family and community. And I mean, we love to see it. You really, like, it sounds funny to say, but we really don't see that actually that much in TV of like, no, but for real, like, your nuclear family can be really nice and helpful sometimes and supportive. Right. It's not all like Nomi's mom, sometimes we have nice parents. Yeah. And I just think that's important to show on television, honestly.
I agree. 100%.
Kala wakes up surrounded by her family. They're worried because she just fainted during her wedding, but it becomes this like sitcom thing where she starts seeing Wolfgang, and they have this moment of like, he's like, you looked at my dick, right? You're still looking at my dick, and she's like, no, oh my god. She's like very tsundere kind of. I think Kala's honestly just like figuring this stuff out and has never had the words to verbalize it. Like, you're attracted to this guy. It's not weird. It doesn't make you a bad person. Maybe she's like grown up in a sort of sheltered life, but she's learning that that's like, sexual attraction is not bad. It's not weird. And the problem though is, Wolfgang is like, I think you want me. I think the truth is you want me, and I actually want you really badly. And that conflicts with both of our lives because he lives on the other side of the world and she is about to get married. So like, This leads to a really, really funny scene later where she's talking to Rajan in her father's restaurant, and he's eating her father's dessert.
Mm-hmm.
And she tries saying like, oh, me fainting, that's really embarrassing. If I was you, I would say that makes me think I don't love you anymore. And if that meant that you wanted to annul the marriage, I mean, I wouldn't even fight you.
She tries it. She
really tries. And he fucking takes him the worst. He says, he says, fainting is a fun part of the story, actually. I'm going to tell our kids someday that you fainted as soon as you saw me.
Oh, my God, you didn't like love. That?
It's uncomfortable. Like, I liked it from our writing perspective. It's just like, ugh, God, like, it's so awkward because she really wants to leave. How do you, I guess it depends on, like, how you feel about Rajan. I know not to trust him, so I'm like, this guy stinks, but I get it. It's like a fun line.
I think it works for me as, like, this comedic moment of I'm trying to get my way out of this relationship with this guy who's, like, a cartoonishly woke king.
Yeah.
Who's just like, I have the perfect thing to say about this horribly embarrassing situation. Mm-hmm. You have no reason to break up with me. Which that's the comedy of that is very entertaining to me. I mean, it's also like terrifying. And there's moments where, I think Kala's story is like a scary one. At least this scene to me was kind of like, you're trying to break up with this guy and tell him it's his idea, but like he's just too much of a wife guy.
He's tragically wife guy. Very sad to say.
Yeah.
To pivot for 1 sec, Majel, can I be the wife guy to Hernando Lito's boyfriend for a second?
Yeah.
Because holy shit. This Kala stuff pivots into Lito, Daniela, and Hernando at a lucha wrestling match, which like I've recently got into wrestling and I was like so excited. I was watching my roommate like, oh my God, wrestling. Lucha, actual wrestlers, awesome. Hernando, and I know I never say this. I have really big problems with like identifying with characters in media because I feel like I've never found a character that like exactly is me. I say that, but I'm never like, this person actually truly feels like me. But the moment when he's over analyzing the like poetry of wrestling and Lito is like, I love him because he thinks so much about everything like this. And I was like, someone is finally like me. Hernando and I both like are just weirdly passionate about bullshit. Like just he's so into it. And the description of the Parca Negra, the thing that stops us from becoming who we want to become, that's the heel in this match. The villain is, he says, is it society? Is it capitalism? Is it, racism? It's the thing that stops us from being who we want to be. And Lito is overjoyed at his like extremely engrossed boyfriend. And meanwhile, a mysterious masked man looks at Lito in a sketchy way. And you're like,
what was that? Was that like somebody working for the scary guy who we're scared of?
Probably. I don't remember.
Okay.
Fuck if I know. I just was so happy to see Hernando and be like, oh my God, he's so cute.
What a weird.
Yeah, the way that they are sliding into the A plot of the series is like corny, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like this could have just been a fun wrestling match. It just feels like unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I know you got to have like a plot for a show, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I would love a version of Sense8 where people are just like maxing and relaxing, just hanging out.
So much of season 1, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just when they get to the stuff, it's like, oh, the plot has arrived.
Yeah.
So that's the wrestling stuff. Do we want to talk briefly about Silas Capheus and Silas's daughter?
Yeah, let's talk about
that. Silas introduces Capheus to Amondi, his very nice, very friendly daughter who doesn't realize she's like a Breaking Bad side character. She doesn't realize that her father is like a rich like criminal magnate or whatever. She just thinks he's a nice man and loves her, and that's true. And she has leukemia. And so Silas is like, hey, I'm giving your mom medicine, but I also need her to go to get treatment regularly. And she needs to be driven there. And if I drive her, this is confusing, by the way. He says, if I drive her, people are going to like shoot up our van or whatever because they hate me. And they know my drivers, so I can't use my cars or my drivers. I need you to take her in he's just like your piece of shit bus. But like, Capheus takes her and like goes for a drive with her, but she's the only person in the bus. So like, if anybody was looking for them, aren't they just going to be like, oh, weird, the one empty bus with one person in it. Oh, it's the daughter in these open windows. Huh, figured it out.
Capheus has also been drawing a lot of attention to himself lately, and people have been calling him Van Damme, and his bus says the Van Damme on it.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
It doesn't quite line up. Like, maybe if it was like, hey, I have a vehicle, be the driver or something, or what you're saying of like hide her on a normal bus drive.
Yeah, just put other people. I guess like if you put other people on the bus, you might get people that you don't trust, but like, I don't know, there's that old lady. Bring the old lady, bring some other people on the bus. Just the bus being with just her in it seems irresponsible, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
And like bad for business, right? Because Jayla later is like, we got all these people filled up on the bus, and then Capheus has to be like, no, actually, get everybody off the bus. This is her day. And that, I don't know. I guess the money works out because they got paid a lot, but it's weird.
Mm.
We know that this is going to go badly, right? We understand.
Oh, yeah. What are you talking about? It's going to go terribly.
I've seen so many action movies where, I mean, this is like a Van Damme movie plot, funnily enough, is like deliver a child somewhere and you'll get a lot of money and you'll be able to help your parents. And it's like, and then he fights people. I know how this goes.
Yeah.
Is it time for, and then last thing before the best scene of the episode, Sun is in a sad women's prison now after being publicly arrested. And the intercutting, speaking of the like interesting ways they intercut Sense8s, she is being interviewed about her sexual history in a women's prison in like really invasive ways, while Leto is on TV and being interviewed by a woman who is ostensibly trying to figure out something about his sexual history. Like she has suspicions.
Right.
And she might be trying to out him. And it's like the fear in both of them is just ping-ponging back and forth perfectly. Really strong scene. Like it just shows that not all the Sense8 connections have to be like charming or helpful or beautiful. It's like, no, sometimes we both have bad days for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
Or we are feeling like the world is pressing in on us for the bad reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, very intense scene. And at this point, Sun is just like very sad. So she gets to talk to Riley later. But before we talk about that, some stuff happens. People are working out. They're doing exercise. Don't you love exercise, Magellan? Are you an exercise guy? Fuck no.
The way that we slide into this is awesome because it starts with Nomi and Neets in bed together. And Nomi's like, let's get a little frisky, basically. And then we go to the gym with Will and his friend. And it's like, okay, I guess we're just at the gym. And then the gym scene like gets gradually more homoerotic as both there's a sex scene starting to brew in the bed and not just a homoerotic but an explicitly homosexual home workout scene is also happening. Like there's not even like really like like rich thematic paralleling going on here. It's just like, hey, Will and his friend are at the gym and that feels kind of gay. Just like if like gay men were working out. It's like a simile that is, you know what I'm trying to say?
You're saying two things. You're saying it's a simile, but they took the word like and broke it in half with a hammer. And it's that tweet that's like, I know people who use subtlety and they're all cowards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not subtle. This is like,
it's awesome.
The fandom would normally be like, oh my God, it's so gay how like Will and Diego. And then Diego has the fucking cojones to be like, you know, I thought with the last name Gorski, you were going to be like a big schlubby dude, like a Chicago like fat guy. And you're actually, he says you're keeping it tight as hell, my man.
But I gotta say, you keep that shit looking tight, man.
Diego's gay. Diego's bi. Let's be real. Diego's bi. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's
Awesome.
canon. I'm not. It's so good to watch a show where I don't have to say like I'm headcanoning. I'm canonizing it. It's just real.
Yeah.
Ugh. I still don't like cops, but the buildup is so funny because then it turns like explicitly sexual. And I mean, think about the filming of this, dude. They filmed all of these sex scenes like 3 or 4 times with all the different scenes.
Right.
Because, Neets and Nomi are doing stuff, and that's like really fun. And Lita, 2 moments in this episode where I once again was like, did I remember this or did I call it? Number 1 was Will was gonna use his cop training to break the plastic bag. And number 2, and I have to say this because we're talking about a sex scene, Lito and Hernando are like doing stuff. And I turned to my roommate and I said, this isn't realistic. If this was realistic, Daniela would start masturbating. And then she does. She fucking exactly does. And I was like, what the fuck? Get out of my brain, Wachowskis. Stop doing that.
Yeah, that was that's a lot.
I was like, are you kidding me? Imagine filming this. Ugh, so funny. And then it turns into...
And so, again, so intricate. Like,
yeah,
this has to be so carefully storyboarded and planned because you're bringing everybody to every location to swap them out with the people who are there. Like, Leto is spotting Will and kissing him on the forehead so tenderly and then on the lips so tenderly. He's also in bed with Neets. He's also in the pool doing pool stuff. He's also in his own body in his own place. And it all is like freely flowing and cutting and swapping characters out. It's really like wild that they were able to pull this off.
Absolutely
really impressive.
Yeah. It's a stunt set piece, honestly, but it uses it for storytelling, and that's why I'm so impressed with it. Like I can imagine someone like JMS who's all about like character over like lore and stuff, being like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, then we have to establish that like Will is probably gay or questioning his sexuality because he kissed Leto in this scene. Like all of these things happened. Everybody here is pansexual, transgender, everything all at once. You can't deny that anymore. It's just happening. And it's awesome. It's fucking sick as hell. Everyone's doing everything with everyone. And then, filming that must be a monumental. And then just like get naked in front of these people that you've only like worked with occasionally, and it's a lot. It's really a lot. And then the way they pivot is, I was like, man, everyone else who's not here must be having a terrible day. I don't know. I think I read somewhere that some of the actors were like not comfortable with the nudity, which is why they're not in this. But I might be wrong. Cassius for sure has a boner while watching Van Damme though, because he comes at the end of this.
So funny. What a button. What a great button. He's looking at it like, okay.
Am I really? And it's a scene of like Van Damme like shirtless, like drop kicking dudes, like
right.
I would.
Yeah. Before we get it to the people who are having a bad day, I think it's really something that this show is like. The first Sense8 sex scene is like everybody's fucking like it's not like Kala and Wolfgang are doing
Neets
their
and
thing.
Amanita, but like not between. You're saying amongst the Sense8s.
Amongst the Sense8s, yeah.
Yeah. It's everybody. It can't just be 2 people. That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah,
and it's not Riley and Will. That would be boring.
Yes, yes, it would be.
I need them to do all 8. You got to go all the way, guys. I hope if the actors aren't comfortable with it, don't do that, obviously. But like, the only place for this to go from here is we get all 8 people in a big cuddle puddle. It'd be like that sometimes. So Riley, Sun, and Caffey are just kind of having meh to bad days. Riley and Sun have like beautiful conversations of solidarity here. They kind of like fully introduce themselves to each other. It's unfortunately couched in a corny moment where Riley's like, I come to this part in the park and it says on the ground, I have conversed with the spiritual sun. And she turns to her and she's like, what's your name? She's like, Sun. And it's like, shut up, Sensei. Come on. Did you name the character after this sign in England? Like, very goofy. But they commiserate about, like, be feeling controlled by people. And Sun says, I really could use a cigarette. And Riley says, well, all I have is this hash. Sun says, "What's hash?" And she gives her a vape that literally looks like the sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who. It's like obscene. And really, did you catch this? The really clever thing they do is, first of all, Sun says, "I can taste it, but it's more like a memory," which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But Sun exhales, and then, like, literally go back and watch this, folks. Sun exhales the smoke. The smoke comes out of Riley's mouth.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like really quick. It's a
That's really
single
cool.
cut, and I was like, "Damn, that's fantastic, actually," because she's not smoking it. There's no smoke to be coming out of her mouth. That wouldn't make any sense.
Wow.
So they're, having their little moment, and then Riley tells Sun about the hidden people of Iceland, and she's like, "I was afraid of them, and my mom told me if I stayed in Iceland." This is all Riley plot stuff that I don't particularly care about. And Sun tells her she's afraid of prison because it's a scary place, but maybe it's safer than being outside. Episode ends with Sun seeing her mother in a vision, and she says that everybody else is afraid of what you are. She says, "Mother, what am I?" And she says, "You are the future." Well, I think this is just metaphor. I think this is like young people are good, I guess.
Well, but it's Angelica.
Isn't Angelica?
It's her mom, and then it's Angelica.
Oh, I didn't even catch the final shot. It's totally Angelica saying that.
Yeah.
Angelica's the one who says you're the future. Okay, you're right.
Yeah. So who knows, but something with the main plot.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It wakes her up in prison at night, and then she goes back to sleep, scared, nervous, etc. I hope Sun's okay. I think she'll be fine. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any story notes on this one? I gotta say, you keep that shit looking tight, man. Thank you for writing that line down. Good job.
I really liked the moment where Leto is asked what's the secret to being a great lover, and he gives this answer that's about like the balance between selflessness and selfishness.
Yeah.
And there's something to that's worth continuing to track, I think, about like how like strong, whether it's lovemaking or relationships, human connection is about this kind of like surrendering to the needs and the personhood of other people, but like holding fast to who you are in the process. Mm-hmm. And I think we're starting to introduce these questions of like, as people's lives blend and their consciousness blends, where's the line between like me and you, and does there need to be one, and what does it look like? So I just thought that was a great speech, and it gave us just a little flash of a makeout scene between him and Hernando to be like, just so you know, it's gonna get a little sexy later. Okay, see you soon.
Yeah. Wink.
That was fun.
And do you think about that though? Because like, if you're having sex with another Sense8, is it consensual? Do they know it's happening? Do they want it to happen?
Right.
Like, all of that stuff becomes complicated, and the like idea that sex, like intercourse, is like a moment where you become two people, and two people become one. That's like a way often that sex is written about in poetry and in music. Mm-hmm. And so like, how does that work when you're a Sense8? How does having sex with each other work? If you already are kind of the same person, it's that orgy scene is also like 6 people masturbating, right? Like it's mm-hmm. all of that if you're really to trace the metaphor all the way to its conclusion. So I thought that stuff's very much worth keeping up with, and like seeing the interviewer like get kind of turned on, being like, oh my god, like just this one has like kind of low standards. She's just like, oh my god, a really hot guy is saying like nice empathetic things about sex. I'm like fucking so horned up right now. Mm-hmm. I was like, good for you. Yeah. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it for me.
I love the wrestling scene. I wanted to see more of that. The sex scene is top tier. Not the best one of the show, but top tier for sure. Yeah. With that, do you want me to tell you what we're watching next week on Chatz8?
Yeah.
Next week on Chatz8, we are watching episode 7 of season 1, WWN Double D. Nomi makes a shocking discovery about her former doctor. Fucking knew it. While Will gets closer to the truth behind his visions, and Kala's doubts grow stronger. Any guesses what WWN means? It's not as funny. It's not as like clever as you think. It's kind of goofy.
What would something
NDD.
something do?
Okay, who's ND?
Is it a person or a phrase?
It's a person.
I gotta think about it.
Okay, we'll come back to it next week.
Ted Nugent.
Bing bong. Next episode, season 1, episode 8. We will all be judged by the courage of our hearts. Sounds like a Soul Calibur announcer. In this episode, Sun fights to adjust to her new life as Cassius tries to change his. Will and Nomi dig up disturbing information that could change everything. Holy shit.
Damn.
That's what we got, John. Where can people find you on the podcast sphere?
They can listen to me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes. It's a video game book club with my friend Justin, where we play games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. Super Smash Echoes. Alan, what about you?
My main other gig right now is Oops More Anime, which is found on scanlinemedia.com. Over there, every week, my friend Six Detmar and I are watching Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury, and talking about it one episode a week as they come out. So if you're up to date with that series or you're interested in anime, it's a pretty good Gundam. It's a pretty good jumping on point. It's a fun show. It's easily accessible, and we have a good short little conversation about it once a week. So that's Oops More Anime. That's my main gig at the moment. I can do the plugs on this time if you don't mind, pal.
Cool. Sounds good.
If you'd like to email us questions, comments, or concerns about Sense8, other chat shows, or recommendations, or anything, our email address is chatspod@gmail.com. That's CHATZPOD. We're at Chatspod on Twitter. We are Chatspod on Reddit. And I always say this, and I really mean it sincerely. Please rate us on your podcast platform of choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. It really helps us out. It really helps people find out about your favorite TV Watch podcast out there, we hope. If you'd like to support us financially, we'd really, really appreciate that. That can be done over at patreon.com/chatspod, where we have tiers at $1, $3, and $5 a month for patrons to support us on a monthly basis and also get all sorts of exciting bonus content like pilot chats where we watch TV show pilots and determine if they're good chat shows. Chats nights where we just hang out and talk to each other and our friends, and commentary chats where we talk over movies. If you back us at $5 a month or more, you get thanked at the end of every main feed episode. And as of today, our $5 patrons include Arthur, Jen, Justin, Kat, Lee, Magellan's mom, Marcus, Michael, Nick and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, Six, and Stefan. Thank you all for supporting Chats. We really appreciate you. All things Chats can be found at chatspod.com. And if you like our main feed podcast art, that was done by our friend Camilla, who can be found at Camillastrator on all of the social media platforms if you're interested in her work. And with that, Magellan, I bring us to our final segment of the show. Every week we do a recommendation called Chatsums, where everybody on the podcast recommends something, some things, media-wise, life-wise, for the listener to enjoy and think about between now and next week. So, Magellan, what is or are your chatsum or chatsums for this week, please?
Yeah, I got a chatsum. I got two chatsums. The first, actually, I don't know if I've chatsumed this before, but I was part of hosting a Halloween party at my girlfriend's apartment for Halloween, which when you're hearing this was a few weeks ago. And I got all these like spooky board games, or a couple, and then I brought some other board games that I always have around. And the thing that saw the most play is a game that it's just good. It's not spooky at all. It's Bananagrams. So I have to pay my respect to Bananagrams because, you know, people were vibing with it and I had a good time. And then my other chatsum is I set up the projector to project on the ceiling, and I needed some like horror. I was like, oh, give me some like horror film montage stuff. And so I found this YouTube channel that had several like hours long montages of horror films from different decades. So if you want to host a party of your own where you have like background footage of movie montages, I don't know anything about the rest of the content of this channel. There's a lot of stuff on it. I'm not recommending the channel, but I'm telling you that YouTube user Firkenstein, Firkenstein, has several very long movie montages. There's a 2-hour classic black and white montage, 5 hours of 80s horror movies montage, 5 hours of 90s, 4 hours of 70s. Like, come on.
This is so good. Wait, with no sound too, so no copyright issues?
Yeah, with no audio, yeah.
Oh my God, this is like designed for what you were talking about. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, it says in the title, like Halloween party. So, pretty useful for setting the tone and having a little conversation piece when people wanted to be like, whoa, what's up on the ceiling? Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are my chat sums. What about you?
I have 2 quickies. I want to chat some the new Taylor Swift album, Midnights. I went on a tweet storm the night that this came out because, you know, I talk a lot about on chats and on like our Patreon, especially like media that is coded for, written for, and by women, and how when I was younger, and Magellan and I both feel this, a lot of I think people who are like raised male feel this, but like this was media that was not for us. We couldn't get into Taylor Swift because she was for girls. And I was really surprised by Midnights. I found it really enjoyable and relatable, interesting, funny, whatever adjectives you want. It's an album about the things that you worry about at midnight, you know? And in the case of Taylor Swift, that's like the rise and fall of your romance, being the good girl persona, the chafing of societal expectations, the, you know, accepting your fallibility and your humanity and all of that stuff. It's a really great album. I love the song Anti-Hero. It's the like standout single from the album, so of course it's the one that's like getting the most talk. I also like Snow on the Beach, which is the song with Lana Del Rey, and I think Vigilante Shit is the other one that I have had a good time re-listening to. I even listened to the 3 a.m. cut the next day. That's how down the hole I went. And now like this album comes on, I put it on when I journal before bed pretty consistently. I turn the lights low and I just listen to Midnight. So I guess I've become a Swiftie at 28 years old. That's on me. And then my other chat sum, if you're not a music person, is the new film Barbarian, which is written and directed by Zach Kreger. Yes, Zach Kreger from Whitest Kids You Know. He made a horror film that just came out in wide release, and it's now on HBO Max. It's, you know, the kind of horror film that you probably don't want to read too much about, but the overall premise starts with what if a woman by herself went to an Airbnb and it turns out another guy was there by himself and they accidentally booked the same house for the same night? And doesn't that seem kind of weird and fucked up? But they stayed the night together and some things happened from there. It's really smart. It's really gross and weird in some ways, and I'm going to be thinking about imagery from it for a while, and it goes a lot of places you don't expect. So if you are interested in Barbarian, check it out, and don't read up on it too much because you'll get a lot out of just being in there with the character, the main character. And that's what we got, folks. So, you know, thank you for being here with us. Thank you to Magellan for being the something about the orgy, huh? No, thank you for being the Diego to my Will, you know, just appreciating my tight bod, honestly. And thank you so much, dear listeners, for listening to this episode of Chatz8. Peace.